And like Eva said, I've been working hard on being funnier for the past year. It's been something very intentional I've done in my writing and in my personal life. And my main strategy has been to spend as much time as I can with George Camel and like hope it rubs off on me. So I think it's working. But I read a book a year ago that really changed my mindset, and I want to share some of that with you today. I've also noticed too with humor that it's working in my personal life as well, especially my love life. Because after years and years of searching and looking for the one, I finally found him, and I got married. 3 months ago, we got married. We were one of the 37 couples at Ramsey who got engaged last year. I highly recommend it. And it's true, marriage is the best. I love it. Jeff Miller, he's a marketer, he's sitting right over there. Yes. And I love him dearly. Our life is so sweet together. But it's true what they say, marriage is a lot of work. And I don't just mean communication and what are your expectations. I mean tasks you have to do. Getting married is like going through a rebrand. You decide to take things in a totally new direction, and then you spend the next 6 months updating all of your assets. It's a lot of work. They don't really prep you for that part of it, right? But we knew that we would be a good team because we met here at Ramsey. We were on the same team. Literally, our desks were right across from each other. So I spent 2 days in onboarding, and then I show up on his doorstep. It was like Amazon Prime. It was wonderful. And I still remember the first thing Jeff ever said to me. He took my hand, and he shook it, and he said, "I'm so glad you're here." Wow. Sweet, right? But he wasn't actually in love with me. He just really needed a copywriter. Another reason why I'm happy to be married is because, you guys, the dating world out there is rough. Dating sucks. Okay, if you've been married 5 years or more, you need to find this nearest single person. Single people, where are you at? Let me hear from you. You need to find them and hug them and invite them over for dinner because it is hard. It's fun. Dating's fun once you find your person, but the process of finding them is a nightmare. There's no romance anymore. There's no meet cutes, there's no stars aligning, there's just lifeless algorithms that bring you together. And by the time you actually meet someone in person, you've done a lot of stalking online already. You're pretending to get to know them, what do you like to do for fun? But in the back of your mind, you're I know where you went on spring break in 2016. And it's very, very odd. Another thing is that you're just on these apps and you feel kind of weird about it. I remember when I first got on apps, I was like, am I really desperate? Is there something wrong with me? What kind of weirdos am I going to meet on these apps? And then I realized, I'm on here. What does that say about me? And then you talk to someone for a while, then you meet up, and one time I went on a hike with this guy I've been talking to. He suggested we go on a hike. I love to hike, sounds great. And then I realized I just agreed to walk through the woods with a man I'd never met. So I show up, I get there first, I'm in my car, and I kind of start thinking about it. And I was like, what if this is the one? What if this is the last first date I ever go on? And this 5'10", 32-year-old electrical engineer named Andrew, who is slowly approaching in a Toyota Corolla. What if he's the love of my life? Or what if he murders me? It could go either way at this point. Because people are weird. You just feel like you can't trust anybody. Another guy I dated one time had some really odd tattoos. It was okay, fine. Tattoos are cool, but I wasn't crazy about his taste. He had a big American flag on his chest, and he had a tree with an axe chopping it down on his bicep. And I was like, this is weird. Well, a few months in, I discovered that he had another tattoo. We were at the gym, and he was wearing some shorts, and I saw something on his leg, and I said, hey, do you have another tattoo you haven't told me about? He's like, and he covers it up. He was so embarrassed. And I persisted. I said, no, what is it? And he slowly revealed to me on his upper left thigh, which was mistake number 1, that he had a tattoo that read, "No regrets." I met one of these people in real life. It's the ironic spelling of no regrets, right? And so I looked at him and I said, tell me about this choice you made. How did you get here? And he said, I was 21, some buddies and I got drunk and thought it was funny. And then I just looked at myself. And I thought about the choice I was making. I thought about the 4 months, the sunk cost that I put into this relationship, and I was filled with an overwhelming sense of regret. Okay, but seriously, single people, keep going. It is worth it. Go on all those awkward dates. It'll be worth it in the end. And if I can share one piece of advice with you, my best piece of dating advice is this: date a coworker. Everything turned around for me when I did that. Okay, at this point you're like, Rachel, what are you doing up here? That's a great question. Like I said, I read a book a while back called Humor Seriously by Jennifer Aaker and Naomi Bagdonas. It's one of your homework items. It's on your handout. You can see the title there. I highly recommend you read it. A year ago, you guys, I would not have had the confidence, or honestly, I would not have been equipped to stand up here and write jokes and try to tell them to you guys. So this book was so helpful and influential to me. Eddie told us a few weeks ago to steal like an artist. That's what I'm doing. I literally just took everything that they had to say, and I'm telling it to you today. Here's the overarching thing that I want you to kind of think about. Being funny is good for us as human beings and as a brand. Humor has so many incredible benefits, and often we don't take the time to just be funny and to have fun. In fact, when I was running through this talk, and I was like, oh no, is it too long? Maybe I cut the first part, like those silly jokes. And it's like, why is that our go-to? Why is that our mentality? So before I tell you why I think humor is important, I want you to turn to your neighbor, and just we're going to take 1 minute to discuss. Why is humor important? Why do you think humor is important? Go, you have 1 minute. Humor is important. Just shout them out. Connection.
Disarming.
It's disarming. Endorphins. You're ahead of me. Girl, Mel.
You're an Enneagram 3.
Ooh. Tell me more about that.
You like to make people laugh.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, it feels good. Yeah. Feels good for everybody.
Yep.
It's a universal language.
Yes, it's a universal laughter. Exactly. You go anywhere in the world, you know what's happening.
Helps deal with pain.
Oh, that's so good, Zach. So I went ahead and wrote down a few that you guys were mentioning here. It bonds us, it breaks down walls, it captures attention, it entertains, it brings joy, and it helps us deal with life's challenges. Humor is phenomenal, and it's not only just like a fun, extra nice part of life. It's actually the way God designed us. It's hardwired into our DNA. It's a gift from God. When Jeff and I got married, another wedding picture, we read our vows to each other, and we made each other laugh in these vows, which I love this about our relationship. He and I go to a ton of stand-up comedy, like Eva mentioned. It's a big part of our life, and it's not an accident, right? Like I said, Proverbs 17:22, King Solomon, millennia ago, said, a joyful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones. So this is a thing that's happening in our minds, and it affects our entire being. And like someone said earlier, it releases, when we laugh, we have all these awesome neurotransmitters and hormones that are released in our brain. We have endorphins. There's the oxytocin, which is that social bonding, happy hormone. It lowers cortisol, which is our stress hormone. And there's one more hormone. Oh yeah, dopamine. Everyone loves dopamine. So yeah, it's a great medicine. It's a de-stressor. It promotes creativity and mental agility, helps us deal with life's challenges. And yet we have a problem, you guys. We take ourselves way too seriously. Gallup did a study a few years back of 1.4 million people in 188 countries, and they asked them a simple question: how often did you laugh or smile yesterday? And guess what happens? People are having a lot of fun in their teens and early 20s, but at age 23, things start to get real dark. There's a plummet. They call this the global humor cliff. And guess what happens around age 23 in a lot of developed nations? We enter the workforce. We go to work and we stop having fun. This is insane. And what I love about this too is, ironically, in your 80s, you're like, I don't give a crap anymore. I don't have a lot of time, so we see a little upswing there, which is great. So my question for you, and the question the authors pose in this book, is how do we get funnier? How do we be intentional about bringing humor into our personal lives, but also into our businesses, into the workplace? There's something that I really want you guys to understand. This is foundational, and I hope that if you choose to think about yourself this way, it's going to change things for you. Humor can be learned and cultivated. What? Really? We often think of ourselves as like very much born with it or not. And maybe Will Smith has a funny gene that we don't have, but that doesn't mean we can't learn how to be funny as well. And here is if I were going to write baby steps for how to be funny, this is it. This is baby step number 1. Being funny starts with having fun. It is that simple. It's about having a lightheartedness and a levity and an openness and a playfulness about life. Like I said, it's about not taking yourself too seriously. I'm going to explain this with a very sophisticated drawing called the humor pyramid. This is from the book. It's on your handout. So let's talk about this. We're going to compare on the right side the concepts of sports and exercise and movement. On the left side, comedy, humor, and levity. Today, we're talking about the very foundational element of levity. Levity means lightheartedness and fun. Just as all human beings are capable, to some extent, of movement, all human beings are capable of levity, of having a good time, whatever that looks like for you. And if you're not capable of having fun, I can't help you. So, the next level up is exercise. When we channel movement intentionally, if I go on a run or if I go to the rock climbing gym, I'm being intentional with my movement, and that's exercise. Similarly, when I channel lightheartedness intentionally, it's humor. It's I'm playing around with it. I'm making something with it. And the final tier here in the pyramid is sport and comedy. This is like the LeBron Jameses and the Jerry Seinfelds of the world. The pros who are super, super good. They spent their entire lives developing this craft. So I want you to think of yourselves just on these bottom 2 tiers. I want you to start having more fun, and then I want you to start thinking about how can I start to craft some humor and begin to shift and see myself as a really funny person. We're going to learn from the pros, we're going to look at jokes from the pros, but we're not going to try to be them. Does that make sense? So, I have a question. You know when you buy something online, you get a confirmation email? Have you ever read and reread and shared and reshared such an email with friends and copywriters? No. Well, I hadn't either until my mom sent me this email from Native Deodorant. I'm going to read it for you guys. It's a great example of fun and of levity. It starts, Tamra, you rock. It was just another mundane day at our office when suddenly Jackie took a look at the computer and her eyes widened. We did it, she exclaimed. We got an order from Tamra Sims. Laura jumped out of her chair and ran to Jackie's desk. She didn't even read the entire email. She just saw Tamra and started screaming in delight. OMG, Laura shouted. This is real. We have an order from Tamra. The entire office erupted in applause. Party in the USA blared from the speakers. Jackie's a huge Miley Cyrus fan, as confetti rained down from the ceiling and champagne bottles were popped. The entire Native team is thrilled you're a customer. Thank you so much for your support, for giving us a reason to cheer on another champion of health. As soon as we're done exchanging high fives, we'll send you tracking information, blah, blah, blah. We got a few little We got a few chuckles out there, but you'll notice there's no jokes really in this email, but it is so fun. And it talked about putting the customer as the hero. Super lighthearted, super fun. So this is an example. If you don't feel like you're ready to start like writing jokes and trying to be super funny, just start here. Just start by having fun. What would it look like to make something that people would read and reread and share that was like this? But we're not going to stop there. I'm going to give you for the next few minutes a joke writing crash course, Joke Writing 101. And from here on out, it'll be probably helpful for you to follow along in your handout. So we're going to talk about 2 essentials of a joke. There are 2 things that every joke must contain. The first is truth. Humor reveals something about the world. It observes something in the world. It calls it out. It sheds light on something that we all experience or see. And I believe that comedians are some of the last, we live in a really weird world where it's hard to actually speak the truth, and comedians get a pass at that. Like, comedians are truth tellers, and they get to say hard things to people who will listen because of humor. So the more universally acknowledged something is, the funnier it will be, because people will buy into it. My brother, when he had his first kid turns about, Charlie's name is Charlie, turned about 18 months, and he just starts going bananas with, Daddy, why, what, all the questions. My brother sent our family group chat this meme. It's funny because it's true, right? So truth is the first element of any good joke. The second element is surprise and misdirection. This is the setup and the punchline, where you're bringing people somewhere and then you take a left turn. This is what makes it fun. It's that little delight. It's that little surprise. So we're going to walk through a few jokes with setups and punchlines so you get a sense of this. Love this from Ellen DeGeneres. My grandmother started walking 5 miles every day when she was 60. She's 97 now, and we have no idea where the hell she is. We think that Ellen's talking about health, right? Oh wow, I'm gonna be like that when I'm older. Like, no, my grandma has been lost for 37 years. Steve Martin. I like a woman with a head on her shoulders. I hate necks. It's a funny image. Bob Newhart. I don't like country music. And I don't mean to denigrate those who do. And for those who like country music, denigrate means to So good. We think we're going here, and then you take us here. So, truth, surprise, and misdirection. Now, let's talk about how you start to become funny. These are 4 steps to becoming hilarious. Quick overview, then we'll dive into each one. Mine your life for funny, or ask what's true. Start to observe the world around you. The second one is to use humor techniques. We'll talk about some of those. The next is to deliver the funny. Like, we all know that we can have a beautiful song, and if you have a terrible singer, it's not going to be a great experience. So it's both and. And finally, be present in the moment. This is about how to be spontaneously funny. So let's talk about number 1. What do I mean by mind your life for funny? All of the great funny people I know who try to use humor intentionally, they keep a note in their phone, and they just jot down observations or things that kind of impact them about the world. Things that make them laugh, literally. A joke that makes you laugh, something that your kid says. Maybe it's a hot take that you have, so let's walk through these. Notice incongruities. Notice inconsistencies about what people say and what people do, or how the world should work and how it does work. Notice your feelings, like what things provoke a strong reaction in you. Notice opinions. Write down your hot takes. That's a great source of humor. Notice everyday oddities, like, why do humans do that? For example, dogs and people. People take such good care of their dogs. You kind of wonder, who's actually running the show here? There's some humor there. If you walk around and pick up someone else's poop, you wonder, who's in charge? Notice what makes you cringe, embarrassment, awkward stuff. Great source of humor. So I'm going to share notice what makes you smile and laugh. Plain old things that you like, write them down and steal them. So I'm going to just share a couple things that I was thinking about recently. So I love you guys, and I love that we're really polite here, and we hold the door open for people, but there's something we've got to stop doing. When I'm parking my car and I get out and I'm walking, and I'm just turning the corner where the trees are, where the black cat lives, and I'm just turning the corner. There's no one between me and the person at the door. And they stand there, and they hold the door open for me, and all of a sudden I'm doing this awkward jog, and I'm not wearing my tennis shoes, and we all did security training. You probably shouldn't even be doing that. I have a fob. Just let the door close. So, from me personally, that's me. So if I do that to you, okay. I'm not the only one. There's another door problem. Whenever we're going to building A from the cafe, I'm why is this door this way? Why does only one of them open? Someone gets caught for 15 minutes. It's a mess. Another thing, when I was planning my wedding, I thought about this. How weird is the garter and bouquet toss? Yes. at a wedding. Like, where does that come from? Like, I probably don't want to know, really. All I know is that some of you guys were at my wedding, and I did not want Jeff, like, nuzzling his head all up in there, trying to garter with his teeth, and tossing it to one of his sweaty groomsmen. Like, and then going back to the single thing, for the ladies, you know, they play Beyonce, I don't sing ladies. But basically it feels like, okay, who hasn't been picked yet? Get out on the dance floor. I was like, we're not doing it. We're not doing it. So what is it about life? Those are very basic observations that you can just think, what's funny about that? All right, let's talk about a few humor techniques. Man, this is just like skimming the surface of a few ways that you can, like, these are technical forms for jokes that you can use. Create contrast. Earlier when I told that joke about meeting the guy for the hike, what was funny about that was the contrast. He could be the love of my life, or he could be a murderer. So the further apart you can get two different things and highlight how different they are, it creates a lot of absurdity and a lot of humor. Make analogies is another one. This is just a, like writers know this, right? You know how to write an analogy. There's a really good joke on here from Jim Gaffigan. Big families are like waterbed stores. They used to be everywhere, and now they're just weird. It's so great. Once again, pulling some kind of connective tissue between two odd things. You find the similarities in these two things, and it creates a nice little surprise. Exaggerate. Oh my goodness. John Deloney is the king of hyperbole. I have a quote from him on here. When people try to have tough conversations over text message, it makes me want to set my eyebrows on fire. What an extreme move. I love this quote as well because it highlights how specificity is funny. Setting your eyebrows on fire is funnier than setting yourself on fire. It's a funny image, and it's such a weird body part. Like, he's really good at this. So exaggeration is a great way to create comedy. Follow the rule of three. This is a really simple way to create a setup and then a punchline. So have your first two items in a list be similar. They flow together somehow, and then the third one just like breaks the expectation. So there's one from Amy Schumer here. Thanks for coming out, Denver. I don't know if you guys know this, but the past year I've gotten very rich, famous, and humble. So the third one does not belong. Imitate people. This doesn't work for everyone, but a lot of people, if you can try to use like voices when you're imitating people or accents, this is a great way to highlight just some humor. Oh yeah, I have here, do you guys remember Will Smith's video of Tim Smith a few weeks back? I mean, that was so freaking, we were wondering, we're like, did Tim double, like, was that his voice? Like, no, like, Will just nailed it. The hair and the outfit, like, perfect example of how that kind of humor works. You guys, these are just a few techniques. There are so many more. There's a lot more in the book that I read. There are so many other ways to write jokes, but I want you to know that there is actually formula for humor. There's actually ways that you can fit things together to do this yourself. So once you've written your joke, how do you deliver it? One thing to keep in mind is to dial up the drama, your facial expressions, your gestures, acting things out, using different vocal dynamics like volume or like speed. Those are really great ways to exaggerate, to bring your stories and your jokes to life. Don't forget to pause. Rachel. So there's a great video on YouTube if you look for a Jerry Seinfeld Pop-Tart joke. He breaks down how he writes this one joke. One of the things he says in it is like, writing jokes is like writing music, and part of music is pause. There's some silence in there. So a lot of people can rush through their jokes and their presentations because like, what if they don't like me? I just gotta get it out. No, lean into the pause so people can actually let the joke land and marinate. Another thing is to match delivery to content. So I have a quick story here. Your humor style needs to be authentic to you. We sit in a personality suite, like Eva said. There's a lot of stuff happening there all the time. There's a lot of big personality. They're all very funny. And they all tend to be a little sarcastic, which is a gift I am not blessed with. And one day there was a new girl coming through, and they were introducing her to the people in the suite. And Ken was there, this new girl was there, and there's a few of us standing around. And someone said, oh, hey, this is Rachel. She's a speechwriter. So she's busy. She's in and out a lot. And Ken Coleman said, yeah, that's kind of how she is mentally, too. And if you know Ken, you know he's sarcastic. And I know he cares about me deeply. So this is a sign of affection. So I was like, I'm going to get him back. But unfortunately, sarcasm does not come naturally. But I thought of something. kind of funny, but my delivery just bombed. I said, well, yeah, Ken, it's what helps me work with space cadets like you. And he just looked at me, and the girl just looked at me, and this is how I felt. I tried. Be authentic to you. Whatever content that you're delivering, like, it needs to be real to you. And if it's not, like, you're not going to land with confidence. That is so important in humor. If you're not committed to the joke, people are going to tell. So, yeah, that's important. Okay, so we've talked about fodder for your jokes. We've talked about how to technically craft them. We've talked about delivering them. Few tips on how to be present in the moment, to be funny right where you are. The first thing you need to know is that humor is social. Things are going to be funny in this room, this specific room, Ramsey Coffee House, that are not going to be funny elsewhere. Things are going to be funny at Ramsey that are not funny elsewhere, with your girlfriends, with your guy friends. Whatever room you're in, this is why, like, when I hang out with my writer friends, we call ourselves the Fleet, I think I'm freaking hilarious. We feed off of each other. We know each other's jokes, and we have this sense of social support. So know what room you're in. Notice the here and now, and as funny as you can be to the specific people in that group, it's just going to be, it's a great way to develop your humor. Okay, know your signature stories. Like, know those go-to stories, the cringy ones, the funny ones, the ones you tell at family gatherings. A lot of comedians, this is how their bread and butter. Like, I think I have a couple names on here. Nate Bargatze, John Mulaney, great storytellers. Watch what they do and how they do it. And use callbacks. A callback is just simply referring to something that you've already said previously. It could have been funny back then, maybe it wasn't funny, but the fact that you're bringing it up now is like a little inside joke, like, for your group. Because, oh yeah, I remember we talked about that. This happens in staff meeting a lot. Someone will say something funny early on, and then other people call back to it. My little regrets joke, that was a little callback. It was a little shorter, but that's an example of that. Okay, like Eva said, you guys have some homework. One of them is to YouTube Sebastian Maniscalco doorbell and just laugh your head off. It is so freaking funny. And as you do that, I'd love for you to get this sheet out and look at everything he's doing. Look how he creates contrast. Look how he dials up the drama and exaggerates. You're gonna love it. Now, finally, the last thing I'm going to leave you guys with is this thought. Here at Ramsey, like, we're already pretty dang funny. I think we do a good job with this. I was in Orlando last week for Building Wealth and for Summit, and I got to hear Dave speak at First Baptist Church. He spoke there on the Sunday in between the events. I was there with my grandparents, and they attend church there, and just sitting with them in a different context, I was like, oh my gosh, Dave is so funny. And I take that for granted. I've heard these stories, these jokes like a dozen times, but I was appreciative of the fact that I saw how he uses humor to talk about a subject that most people don't ever want to talk about. But because he's approachable, and he's self-deprecating, and he's witty, and he's honest, he gets to tell people things about their money. It gives him access to their hearts and their minds. So I think we do a really good job of this. I think that we've done some fun stuff recently, like April Fools, we had a fun couple pranks. George had a fake product called the fanny pack cash envelope system. Deloney sent out a fake product, questions for pets. I love this. Who's a good boy? This review from Cooper. Whoa. Order meow. So fun, so great, right? I love that we do this. Rachel Cruz is crushing her reels for the first time ever with Ken this year. We sat down and really crafted some humor for his summit talk. We have amazing writers. I know you guys. I work with you guys who write social copy and blogs and you incorporate humor. But I think about all the benefits that humor brings. And I ask myself, like, what would happen if Ramsey became one of the funniest brands in the marketplace? What if we got to teach people about money because they were just laughing and they wanted to keep watching our stuff because it was so dang funny? So I think if we're going to ever get there, it starts with us. It starts with us learning how to have more fun, to be a little bit funnier. So thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to me. And remember, being funny starts with having fun. And singles, make your move.